I'm going to have Councilman Nakhan lead us in prayer and Councilman A.B. Rubin lead us in pledge.
Holy Father, we thank you for this gathering. We thank you for bringing our minds and our hearts together here to do your work. Give us the grace and the goodness to do it according to your will. We ask it in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone who's present and everybody watching at home. We welcome you to today's budget review. This meeting is a departmental budget review session. If you wish to address the council, a green card should be filled out and given to the council clerk, Ms. Veronica L. Williams, who's seated to my left. I'm requesting that the first row of my left be used for media only and the right side of the auditorium be reserved for budget and finance staff. I'm also requesting that anyone who approaches the podiums, please state your name and title for the official record. Lastly, food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium, and all cell phones and electronic devices shall be silenced from this point forward. This meeting is to address matters related only to the proposed budget document. Please, we request all other matters specific to the city parish government business be addressed directly to the administration and that is not addressed at this public forum. The budget document has been posted at the website www.lafayette.la.gov under Finance. Public comment will be held immediately following each budget review on matters related to that specific department's budget. All council members are reminded that 3 possible actions can be taken place during these hearings. A council member may propose changing the budget by offering one of the following. First, a general amendment, when the entire council agrees on a proposed amendment. A separate amendment, when a council member objects to a budget change. Or 3, a council member may also choose to mark an item for wrap-up discussion to allow more time to receive additional information. Note, you also may request information from the director or agency head. Following your review of the information, you may choose to come back later to perform one of the 3 options above. We have 2 council members missing today. We have Councilman Nakhan and Councilman Tabor unable to attend. As budget vice chair, I'll be presiding officer. For joint meetings, I would alternate with the budget chair, Kevin Nakhan. For those tuning in at home or other locations, call 291-8428 if you wish to speak. Keep in mind there is a slight delay when viewing on TV via the internet. Council announcements related to the budget. Do I have any? I'm not seeing any. I'm sorry? Oh, Councilman Rubin's screen's not working? Did you want to say something? No? All right, well, just, you want to see your screen? I do too. All right, so they're going to work on that, but just let me know, just give me a little tap if you need to speak. I'm going to take, oh, I'm sorry, Mayor President, did you have anything that you'd like to say before we get started related to the budget? I'm sorry, hold on, let me get to the mic. All yours.
Nothing specific other than just thank you for your service. Thank you for everyone for joining us here at this budget process. We appreciate you.
And we appreciate you. Thank you. Councilwoman Cook, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just have a real quick question for Lori. Usually hot off the press, we get on the 6th of every month the sales tax numbers from the previous month. We didn't get anything in today?
I'm going to make sure that, Lori, you are live. Go on ahead.
Have you all received anything or, nope?
Nope.
Okay, just checking. I hadn't either, so we're in the same boat. All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. I'm not seeing any other council members that have announcements. I'm going to take, I know we already had a list of schedule, but I'm going to take chairman's privileges and move the city marshal up first. He has to step out earlier than needed, so we're going to call up the city marshal, but everything else will remain in the same order. So council members, pull up your information on city marshal while we're getting ready.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For the record, my name is Michael Hill, and I am the interim city marshal for Lafayette.
I'll give a brief introduction.
Okay, perfect. Lori, would you like to start with your opening remarks?
Sure, Joseph, we have a pie chart for the marshal. The marshal's budget is $2.1 million. Of that, 2.2 is salaries. His salaries are increasing 11.7% over that of last year. And 10 years ago, his salaries were 30% less. He has 24 staff members, and he is retaining that same level of staffing in this budget. You can see from the pie chart that he does get money mostly from the city general fund. The portion in the parish general fund is not a city parish allocation. That is the portion that is mandated by state law that the parish cover a portion of the marshal's salary. I think it might be 35%, 35%.
I think so, but
Something like that. And you'll see the same thing in city court, where the parish is mandated to cover a portion of his salaries, and that's it.
Okay. Council members, we're going to start on page 105. Page 105, under City Marshal, which is in the middle of the page.
the only thing I'd like to say, there's an overtime budgetary item there. I've discussed this with the administration, and consistent with what I agreed to do last year, I'm going to cover my own overtime expense. So while there will be an appropriation for it, I'm then billed for any that's paid the following month, and I pay that myself. So that's a saving for you. We've done that for a couple of years, so that's the only thing I think that's really not here. There is a request for a couple of units, which we badly need, but I believe we have something worked out with that. So at this point, I'd appreciate that stay there, although I don't believe those funds are going to be actually expended.
Thank you. And I know we do have some new council members. This is their first budget. So I just want to remind you that whenever you are going to mention a specific line item, I ask that you read all the numbers right before that line item. Say the line item name, then ask your question. That way we can all be on the same page of which one you're talking about. So I see Councilman Lazard has a question, so I'm going to give him the floor.
Laura, you mentioned a pay raise. Could you give us the explanation for that?
I believe, I'm looking at, it looks like he's got some promotions in there, so that probably accounts for a large portion of the increase in salaries.
And Councilman Lazard, those are promotions within the department based on step increases, essentially, which is consistent with the manning table and the appropriation previously agreed to by the council, by your predecessor, council, I acknowledge.
So it's not really a raise per se.
I'm sorry, sir.
So it's not really a raise per
No, sir.
se?
No.
It's a step increase?
Correct.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Clear the floor. Thank you. All right, we're still on page 105. Page 105 in the middle. Going to page 106.
It's just totals.
Okay, that's just the total. Moving on, council members, we're moving on to page 303, 2021 capital, page 303.
Those are the units I talked about, which are the only capital requests we have. Again, I've discussed that with the administration. I think that I'm going to be able to get that taken care of without the necessity of actually expending these dollars. I expect to have that worked out fairly shortly. So for now, I'd like to leave this here, but it's probably not going to be expended.
Okay.
It can be taken out probably by the time you get to the end, would be my guess. I'll leave that up to Lori. I can barely read the numbers, much less manipulate the numbers.
Okay, so you're going to be looking towards the top. Yep, you see it. It says it's marked City Marshal, 90,000.
Just to be clear, Councilman, that's two police units. Because it costs us about between $10,000 and $12,000 to equip the unit once we buy it. And we would buy it at the state program rate. So they do whatever they can do to get those prices down, I assume, but having lived in Baton Rouge, I don't promise you anything about that.
Okay, Is that good, Councilman Carlson? Okay. All right, I don't see any more questions on that line item, so we're going to move. The next section we'll discuss is the Manning table, starting at 326, page 326.
And the Manning table is simply as we have had it. At this point, there is one position that is not filled, which we're going to have to hold, as half of y'all will remember, and the other half probably don't care about. I'm the interim marshal. I'm serving because the prior marshal was suspended. My seat will be finished or be refilled by somebody other than Wah in the election in November, and I'll go back to trying to retire as a judge. So the slot that is currently vacant is a place we need to hold for that man, for the new marshal coming in because of a promotion that we made. I need to keep that slot open for him.
Is he seated in January?
Yeah, yes, the term is up in new marshal. It's first Monday in January, I think.
Is the swear-in?
I'm not quite counting the days, but I'm sorry.
No, I was confirming what you were
Oh,
saying.
okay.
Yes, sir. Okay. Any other questions? The Manning table is just that top portion. I don't see any questions. Any comments from the public on this matter?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
No, I've been called worse. All right. I don't see anything else. Marshall, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Madam Chairman today, right? Madam Chairman, thank you.
I tell you, I'm going to be called a lot of different things today, I think, by the end of the day, huh? All right, now we're getting back to where we were supposed to be. Budget item next up for discussion is Parks and Rec. And while we're waiting for someone, I don't know who's going to speak on this, is I guess, Sidra, because you're the interim director, the interim to the interim. So while we're waiting for that to get set up, I want to let my council members know we're going to be starting with operating expenses, starting on page 198. So if you want to get over there, Lori, whenever you're ready for your opening remarks.
I do have a pie chart for Parks and Recreation. So it looks a bit different than last year. Just as a reminder, last year, we funded the Parks and Recreation Department with the city property tax, and then we filled in the gap with the city general fund and the parish general fund at a ratio of 90-10, and that was in the city parish allocation. There is no subsidy in this fund budgeted for next year. So there is nothing in the city parish allocation. In the current year, the parish put up $370,000, but in the next year, it's projected that the parish is not going to put up anything. There's been a lot of discussion about the Parks Department and between the city and the parish, and there is one item in here that I think we might want to move. We have a lot of money for capital for the unincorporated parks from that library rededication. So there's also another $40,000 in the budget that is designated for unincorporated capital. But I think it might be a good idea to move that $40,000, leave it in the parish general fund as it is now, but move it to O&M so we could use it for some GOMO and things like that for the unincorporated parks. That'll give us a little bit of money to tend to those needs since they have that library rededication. And that's on the first page in the budget book. We're also going to talk about the golf courses. In this budget, the golf courses are projected to be 100% self-sustaining for O&M. This does not affect their capital. Their capital is still coming from the city pay-as-you-go capital, but they're projected to cover their full O&M, so they're not getting a subsidy from the city general fund as they have in years past. This is going to require some adjustments. I don't know if we've ironed out all of those adjustments just yet, but if it is changes in the rate structure, it has to be in a form of an ordinance approved by you, so it will come back to you. So know that just because you're looking at this budget, and if this budget gets approved as it is, it still would not allow them because it's not spelled out in the budget ordinance. We could go back and add a section in the budget ordinance before adoption if we get to that point, but I don't think we're going to be at that point by the time we adopt the budget, so it will have to come back to you for the change in any rate structure and whatever that might look like. The positions in the Parks and Recreation Department, they had 116 positions. 2 positions were taken out in the mid-year budget, and then the rest of the positions, 37, are taken out in this budget, and the staff is estimated to go down to 77 people. And that's it.
Okay, and before we get started, Mayor, I have your mic hot. I'd like for you to give a little bit of clarification. There's been a whole lot of is it, isn't it, is it, isn't it on parks and recreation centers being open on the north side. At the last council meeting, you mentioned how many of you think this is closed, how many of you think this is open. So could you, because I know there's going to be a lot of people speaking tonight or today, into tomorrow morning, about whether or not we need to reopen parks. Can you be very specific on what is open and what is not?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. All parks are open. They've always been open, and we've made some adjustments to allow all parks and recreation centers to be open, all rec centers. So we have 8 rec centers, and we have 2 activity centers. We will maintain the hours of operation, maintain the status quo within the budget that we're submitting.
Okay, can you explain how we're able to do that?
Oh, and our interim director can probably elaborate, but I'll
Okay,
give
so
the...
she will, all right.
I'll give the summary, though, is basically we just readjusted our resources, moved manpower around and listened to the feedback of the public, which was very helpful, listened to feedback from the council, and we were able to do that.
Great, well, Sidra, do you want to take it away for the opening comments for you?
Certainly.
Do I have you on? I think I do.
Okay.
Yep,
Y'all can
you're
hear me
there.
now.
Thank you.
Before I jump in, I do want to acknowledge the staff that's here today. We've been working very closely over these, last few days for sure. I want to point out that we've got Noreen Lannery as the executive assistant. Rakisha, thank you very much. She's our budget analyst. Couldn't do pretty much anything without her as well. We've got our athletics guru back in the back, Mr. Walter Guillory. We have, is Miss Denise Ferguson here with therapy? There she is. Hi, I'm sorry I missed you earlier. With our therapeutic recreation, we have, let's see, Royal Hill as our center coordinator. I know I saw him walk in earlier. Hi, Royal. Ross Gresham is over operations and maintenance. He's the guy who's making sure that all the grass is cut and the playground equipment is secure. Thank you very much, Ross. We've got our guys from the golf courses, so I know we're a little bit spread out. I think we've got David, Gary, and Eric over in the corner there with the wetlands. We've got Todd here. There's Todd with Lavoshian. And Mr. Wayne is right there with the Herbert Muni Golf Course. And I apologize for anybody that I might have missed in this. This is a topic that's important to a lot of people. A lot of passionate discussion that's probably been much needed, and so we're grateful to have this opportunity. Specifically with regards to the recreation centers. It's basically really adopting and putting into action what the mayor-president has put before us and talking about doing more with less. Royal Hill and Mr. Walter Guillory have come together to put together a plan to essentially make sure that all the centers are staffed and maintain the hours as they are today. So we've got some part-time people working. It's a combination of part-time recreation coordinators working with full-time recreation staff, and then the athletic staff will be ensuring that all the centers are operational as they stand today.
As they stand today, I guess, because as
They're
they stand
open
today,
today.
due to COVID,
They're open.
open
The
now.
hours are operating.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they'll be open 8 hours a day, generally from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m.
is that the pre-COVID times?
I believe so. Those Royal, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm hearing a yes from the crowd. Okay. All right, well, good. Glad to hear that. So,
But basically, just everybody kind of just, coming to the table, putting
Some
all their
ideas.
efforts together and making sure that we carry on. And so that's the charge at hand, and that's what we're doing.
perfect. I see a few council members have some questions, so I'm going to start. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you if you weren't done. Sidra, were you done with your?
I'm sure I'm not. but I am, for now.
You should. But you're done with your intro?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'm going to go to Councilwoman Cook. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm going to kind of jump right in here. I'm addressing Lori. We had a conversation about the potential of not reorganizing per se department totally, but reorganizing the funds within this budget department in terms of putting the city funds under City Parks and Rec, the parish funds under Parish Parks and Rec, and basically doing a split of employees so that and this is going to be a wrap-up, I guess, item information I'm looking for, what employees are actually shared, because I know those employees are shared by, and maintenance are shared by both city and parish functions. So what I'm requesting is that those employees be pulled from the Parks and Rec department, whatever ones that are listed within that department, to understand how many of those employees are being shared by both city and parish. So I would request that information. And then, again, I'm requesting the relabeling in the book in terms of city parks, which means those are all put in by the city millage. The city number is within that fund. And then there would also be, which I think Fund 276, which is where the 2 million is sitting, where the capital you said was going to go back to the parish general fund, but basically that particular 276, is all parish funds. So if you would show me how that would look as far as dividing that up, that would be very helpful in us moving forward with determining how we're tracking where our city dollars are going, where our parish dollars are going. So I was under the impression we could do that, so I'm just following up to see if that's something that can be done.
I think I'll follow you. I do know that there is a budget amendment that has been introduced. Has it been introduced, or it's going to be introduced, where it's taking $1.8 million of that $2 million and dedicating it to some capital items at various parks?
Parish parks, correct.
Parish parks.
So we could stay
And so
in.
that would leave 200,000 unassigned for anything in particular. I did get your email, so I did bring my proposition book with me, but I did check the proposition, and it does say it could be used for O&M even at parish parks, so it could be used for O&M. So I can kind of see what that looks like. We did look for, Mr. Lazard had us looking for something earlier to try to figure out what employees might have been assigned to the, not to the unincorporated parks, and we really couldn't find that certain employees were assigned to the unincorporated parks. It was just a partial, they would work in the city and work in the unincorporated areas. If you're talking about separating employees and having this guy getting paid by the parish dollar only working on parish parks, that would be something totally separate.
And that's where we'd like to eventually go, and I'm not sure how we get there, but that's the kind of direction. So that's why I wanted to know how many employees out of the Parks and Rec Department are actually, and probably all of them are paid by both city and parish with the consolidated government. So I guess I just want those numbers of those employees, and of course, I guess I can get that from the Manning table, but that is the direction.
It's not going to be, we'll have to figure it out. It'll
Okay.
definitely be a wrap-up item,
Okay.
because it's not easily identifiable. And I'm not sure that you have the need for permanent people assigned for the unincorporated parks. It's not like they have rec centers or anything there.
Right, well, that
They
would be
just
a
go
part-time
load-
person paid out of the parish, though, is what I'm
Right.
saying, yeah. Yeah, and just, not to say that one can't help the other in terms of that, but I guess we're just trying to draw the lines or clearer to see where the money's going, that's all. We're not taking any money away, we're just seeing where it's going right now.
Sure.
All
Okay,
right, so
if-
you've requested that for wrap-up?
Wrap-up,
Okay.
yes.
Any questions about specifically what she's looking for? We're fine?
Probably as we start digging into it, we'll
Sure.
probably have more questions.
Okay.
Sure.
And
Great.
you also had the relabeling of the parks in the budget as a city-type budget and as a wrap-up.
Okay. Councilman Lazard, you have the floor.
Sidra, just for point of clarification, when you say that all the rec centers are they open to the public now for regular activities? Okay,
Under the Phase 2 guidelines.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I guess that's the point I'm getting at. So when you say open for now, you mean for the rest of the fiscal year?
For the foreseeable future, yeah, we don't have any intention come November 1 of making any changes. This plan is, as the mayor president has continued to state, maybe there's been some confusion, and there's, let's not mince words here. We've got some work to do. But it is intended, we've got the plan, we've got it laid out, we've got the employees, we've got part-time people, we've got full-time people, people from athletic staff are coming together to make sure that these centers continue to operate under the hours, forget about capacity as Phase 2, but under the hours that they're operating now.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be back.
Okay, sure. Go ahead. I'll be back. Sidra, does that mean y'all have something to present to us to add money back in the budget for next year? Are you saying that it's open for now until the end of this fiscal year, then into next fiscal year, it is closed?
What I can tell you is the budget is being presented as it is. We're not proposing any changes at this time, no.
Okay.
We recognize that this is going to be sort of a work in progress because we're changing the model of Parks and Recreation. We are working with a lot of partners, and many of you are working with us to work with those partners. We're looking at tennis, we're looking at swimming, we're looking at the associations, we're working with our municipalities. The Parks and Recreation Department as it exists today and operates today won't look like that in the future. So there will be changes coming, both operationally and fiscally speaking. So as it becomes more clear as to what the future holds and the needs are to continue the operations, we may come back. It's possible that we may come back, but right now we believe that we are presenting a budget that is sound, it's fiscally prudent, and it's quite frankly doing the charge that this administration has led, which is live within our means. We're working also closely with, Ross has been wonderful over in operations to make sure that, we keep up the parks, keep them mowed, keep them clean, keep them maintained through the equipment operations, but some of those operations are going to be outsourced now through the GOMO program. So there's not just one thing that's changing in Parks and Rec so that we can say, like, this is what the budget's going to look like. There are a lot of things that are moving right now within Parks and Recreation that everybody's really coming to the table to kind of like work through and make it, a long-term sustainable department, because there's obviously a lot of interest in this department, as there is for this administration as well. So, that's the best I can do today, is say this is the budget that we're presenting. We don't expect to, offer up any amendments, before November 1, but, we will continue working on it.
Sure, absolutely. So, okay, the mayor wanted to say something real quick for clarification.
Yeah, I'll just add, I thought that was well said. These innovative ways that the CAO is telling you about, GOMO being one of them, all that does is it frees up money so that we can keep the rec centers open. It frees up money so that we can continue to mow the grass at our parks and pick up the trash at our parks and keep the lights on our parks. It frees up space and money and resources so that we can add even more services to our people. No one here will debate the quality of life that Parks and Recs brings to our community. What I'm saying is we cannot fiscally and financially afford it doing it the way that we have been doing it for 20-plus years. So, again, this department's been subsidized over $61 million, over the last 19 years. What we're saying is the budget that we submitted, we don't want to change the dollar amount. We're saying we're changing the way we operate so that we can make that dollar amount work. So no changing hours, nothing like that.
Okay. Is that all?
That's it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Councilman Carlson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Lori, along the lines of what Councilwoman Cook was referring to, so my understanding is outside of LUS, City Police, City Fire, we don't even have a designation for city employee or parish employee. We have a designation for Lafayette Consolidated Government employees. Is that correct?
Right.
So this would be new in a form of operating if we were going to start looking at Parks and Rec first, but every department potentially, and saying, well, this is a city employee, this is a parish employee. Is that correct? This would be a new way of operating since consolidation in '96?
It would. I understand where she's going, but putting it under that fund, but it's not like you're going to have an employee in a blue shirt that works in a city and one in a green shirt that works in the parish.
Right.
And they can't cross the boundaries because that's just not going to work.
Right. So, and I get where you think you're going. I think, in the past, when the parish has put money into Parks and Rec, it's been a joint budgetary item. And I think there is merit there to consider how do we go about addressing just the city, looking at city parks and what the parish chooses to do, and maybe it's what we've done in Broussard and Youngsville and the other municipalities, so that we don't have so many parks to maintain. I just wanted to, again, I was a little confused. I wanted to make sure I was on the same page and kind of understanding. So currently, there is no designation between a city employee and a parish employee.
Right.
It's just an LCG employee.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Gilbo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Laura, on the same line, so basically what we're talking about is probably the proration of salaries, right? 60/40, 80/20, if you work for the city or the unincorporated, right? Is that what we're talking about?
That's not the way I understood Ms. Cook to talk about it. That she's wanting to say, well, everybody who's getting paid with the city millage is a city recreation employee,
So
not an
there-
allocation.
So there's no proration of the salaries at all? I mean, maybe we don't need a full-time person necessarily in the unincorporated, but maybe 20% of that time, and we could do a proration? I'm just asking, I don't know. Sounds
That's
reasonable.
kind of the model we have up until next year, where the department was getting subsidized with general fund dollars. It was getting 90% of its subsidy from the city and 10% of its subsidy from the parish. Next year, we are projecting there's not going to be a subsidy. There's not going to be a city-parish allocation because it's all going to be funded within its designated millage and whatever revenues they generate.
So we go to
themselves.
time allocation if we have to. Never mind. Next subject. Thank you, Sidra, for the presentation. I really do appreciate what has been presented to us. I'm excited. I always felt like it was never the intent of closing any of these centers. And we were looking for a viable, excuse me, I'm speaking. I was looking for viable solutions along with everybody else. And I think you have come forth with it. The centers will be maintained. Certainly, we're not going to stop looking at alternative funding. We're going to aggressively continue to look at those, be it partnerships, sponsorships, whatever it might be. And I see the heads nodding, so that I'm taking that as a yes. I'm glad to see that we are thinking out of the box. And again, we need to find sustainable solutions into the future. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Rubin, you have the floor, and speak into the microphone for me. Thank you.
Thank you. How you doing, Ms. Stoops? You're a very popular lady right about now. Huh?
Sitting in a
It's
hot
her
seat.
Super Bowl.
Okay, so I come nicely to you because we're going to pretend right now we don't have anything going on. What can you do if I was to come to you and ask you to keep all my parks and rec open? What would you do in the budget right now? And we don't have anything, we're going to say we don't have anything planned on the books right now. What would you do to keep all parks and... Hello? I'll come back.
Yep, you're still.
What would you do to keep all parks and recs open as of right now?
So I think the administration has put a plan before you that is keeping all parks
No,
and
no,
rec.
I'm talking, what I'm looking for is a safety net, okay? In case everything else fails, all right? Because we're talking about doing something for a one-year period. So I need something in my toolbox right now to be able to present later on. So you would be the best person to help me out. What would you do to moving forward, what would you put in the budget to keep all parks and recs open if we didn't have anything on the books right now?
I don't think I understand your question because the administration has said, this is it.
I understand
And this
that.
is what we're keeping everything open, so I don't understand what else you're asking.
So I'm going to interrupt here, is I think there is a solution to your problem that's about to be offered. Do you mind yielding the floor? And if it's not the solution you're looking for, we can come back?
Okay, I understand it, but let me say this one more
Okay,
time.
no, okay, go ahead.
Okay, I understand there's a solution that's being brought up,
Okay.
okay? What I'm asking is, let's pretend there's nothing right now, okay? Because what's coming up is a one-year solution, all right? Unless I'm wrong.
No, I don't.
You're wrong.
Looking at long-term.
Yep, so he's looking long-term, so,
Okay, I'll yield it for now.
yeah, yield for now, then we'll come back to you. How about
All
that?
right.
Perfect, thank you. Can you press done? Councilwoman Cook, you have the floor.
Okay, just one more quick question, because we're talking about the employees within the Parks and Rec Department. Tell me again, what is the split right now? An LCG employee, which they are, LCG employees, in the Parks and Rec Department, what percentage is city and what percentage of their salary is parish funded?
You're talking about the allocations, what percentage is city and what percentage
What
is?
you just said, was it 90/10? Is that what?
So it's not just salary, it's everything going on in all the O&M of the Parks and Rec Department.
Right, but what the salaries that these employees are being paid?
They are paid first from the millage that's generated, the city millage.
Right.
Then they're paid next from the revenues that are generated within the Parks and Rec Department.
Okay.
And then any monies left over that they need that come from the general fund for the current fiscal year, it comes 90% from the city general fund, 10% from the parish general fund.
Okay, that's what I just needed that number, just to confirm, 90 to 10.
But that's not a
that's not-
90-10 across the board.
Right.
That's the last dollar that is put in is split 90-10.
After, I got you. Okay, I just wanted to, that's what I needed. I'm sorry. Thank you.
But it's not projected to continue that way with this budget. There is no subsidy.
Right, so it'd be all city millage funds is all we're looking
Millage funds
at.
and self-generated funds by the Parks
Revenues,
and
I
Rec
got, okay.
Department.
All right, that's what I needed. Thank you.
Mayor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a few things. I think I understand the intent behind what Councilman Rubin was saying. I think it's coming from a good place. You want to make sure that that the parks and recs are viable long-term, that, let's say, the starting point right now, the executive branch provides the legislative branch a budget. Let's say that doesn't work. What's the safety net? I hope I'm understanding your intent. So let me just identify a few safety nets out there. One is the city general fund, which the subsidy was coming from for years, okay? And I mentioned that, $61 million over 19 years. We also have a special meeting set Monday that the parish council called that I don't believe there'll be an objection to, but appropriating $200,000 of the rededicated funds. You know, that's one safety net available. But also just the ingenuity in our own department. The greatest asset in Parks and Recs are the people. And we have some here in the audience. And I'm not amazed because I expect the greatness that you've been providing, to be honest with you. And the ideas that have come out of that department just in the last few weeks, ideas that I never would have thought of, you know? So look, we gave them a task. My mission was live within our means. Here's the millage, here's the revenues or the forecasted revenues. We feel in this executive budget that we can satisfy the intent of the Parks and Recs Department just with the dollars that we have, but that's just the starting point. As the CAO said, when we get into these different innovative ideas, just little things like putting the parks on GOMO frees up money, frees up resources so that we can do even more and add even more services to the departments. If you like your rec centers now, stay tuned. You'll like them a lot more in the future, and we'll be providing it a better cost-effective way. Also, the city versus the parish, because Councilwoman Cook made a good point, you know, about the city fund or the city millage. My apologies. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Okay. So the city funded millage. The parish we're working very hard outside the parish with our municipalities to create partnerships with them, IGAs that Youngsville, we just executed, Broussard, we're about to execute it, our other municipalities, we have some ideas either, or we're already in discussions either with the municipality itself or through organizations to take over these resources so that the public, our parish residents, are still being provided the services, but it's not using the city general fund. That's been going, look, we all inherited that model. It's the model we have, but it's the model that we're fixing. So that's gonna help you, Councilman, or help to answer what your concern is, which is extremely valid. That leaves us the parks in the unincorporated areas. There are still entities out there that we feel would still be able to do the same thing that we're doing in the municipalities, but do it in the unincorporated areas. If we achieve that, which I'm very confident we will, now we're only talking about using city money, city general funds, or excuse me, city villages inside the city, which is the intent behind the ordinance that was introduced. So there's a lot of questions right now, a lot of legal questions, all that good stuff. That's why I was happy to support it going past introduction, because I know the intent, what you're saying. I think I understand the intent behind Councilman Rubin. We're doing new things. New things sometimes takes a little additional time. We'll get through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you buzz out? Not buzz off, buzz out. Councilman Lazard, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When the initial announcement was made some time ago that we were closing the 4 rec centers, at the time, I really couldn't understand the justification for it. Eventually, we got this analysis, if you will, as to the reasons and the justification for why those 4 particular centers were selected. As time has gone on and we've gotten more and more information, still to this point, there doesn't seem to be a logical explanation for why those 4 particular centers were selected. The initial reasoning was usage, and if not mistaken, was it fees generated or something to that extent? Well, we've gotten a lot of information since that time, and to me, there's still no logical explanation as to why those 4 particular centers were selected in the first place.
I can respond.
They, of all the recreational centers in the parish, based on information received from LCG, those 4 particular facilities cost the least to operate. They had probably not going to use the right language here, but they had I call it the best return on investment based on projected losses, if you will, from those particular centers. It seems as though the only rationale for selecting those 4 particular centers were the fact that someone decided that there were simply too many centers in a given geographical area. And I don't think that that's proper rationale that should be used when we're talking about closing down public facilities that are such a valuable benefit to the community. And in all honesty, I guess as time goes on, we will see how this works out. But at this particular point, I'm not totally comfortable with the administration's proposed plans. There's still too many questions than answers for me personally. So having said all that, Madam Chair, I would like to propose I'm going to say a general amendment.
Okay.
Propose a general amendment that we amend the Parks and Recreation budget by increasing it by $3.5 million being taken from the cities, and I want to emphasize the city's general fund.
That it?
That's it.
Okay. Lori, do you have any questions about that? Veronica, did you get that general amendment?
Yes, I did, and you would have to ask for objections.
Okay, just making sure that everyone
Yes,
got it,
ma'am.
because I know you were walking to your seat. Are there any objections? Okay, we have one objection. It'll move forward as a single amendment.
Who objected?
Mr. Nakhan?
So, Ms. Abear?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll follow up with Mr. Lazard because to get all the technical account numbers and the dollar amounts.
Yeah.
So he's given you a general dollar amount, and we're going to massage it, try to get it right at the number that he's requesting.
Perfect.
With the proper line items.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lori.
Just go ahead and close out, please. Mayor, our CFO, y'all are all labeled differently, sorry. Sidra.
Yes. I wanted to respond to you, Councilman Lazard. I think it was lost in translation. I know it was said, because I remember clearly when interim director Frank Wittenberg was here and he was discussing, the associations particularly, when the directive was given to the Parks and Recreation Department to live within their means. It was so that we could make sure that we were touching the most youth, the numbers of youth, and impacting the numbers of youth within our community. The associations, in particular, the youth athletic associations, are the way that we do that through football, volleyball, basketball. I think there's some tennis. And I know Mr. Guillory can also fill in. Those associations are strong, and they could be stronger. The areas that don't have associations associated with them are the two activity centers, one being the Bowles Center. So there's no youth association, athletic youth association, tied to the Bowles Center. Because there's no recreation component to that. There's no youth association tied to the J. Carlton James Center because there's no recreation component to that. Those are two specifically activity centers, no recreation whatsoever. Additionally, there's no youth athletic association with the Hyman Center, and there is no youth association tied to the Domain Center. So the centers remain open, as we've said. They are open today, they'll be open tomorrow, they'll be open on November 2nd. But the centers that we are talking about, they don't have a youth association tied to them. Some of them don't even have recreation. So I just wanted to go back to that point because, it was questioned why we're even talking about those centers, and that was the reason, and that was the recommendation from the staff.
Thank you, ma'am. Oh, is that it? Okay. Buzz out. Second move on. Thank you. Councilman Lazard, you have the floor.
Thank you for that clarification, Sidra, and I fully understand the nature of Bowles and J. Carlton James. I've frequented those facilities quite often, and I realize that they're activity centers as opposed to recreational centers. And as we work our way through the process, when we get to final adoption, we may get to a point where we might not need the entire amount that I'm requesting be allocated. So we still have time to work our way through that process. It's just kind of hard for me to believe that we will be able to continue operations as they are today after November 1st or when COVID passes and school reopens and everything else, and we get back to a full range of activities. So I guess this is my definition of a safety net. So, thank you.
Councilman Lewis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Lady, woman. Sidra, I just want to have a comment. I'm sure you're aware of that, but I want the rest of my colleagues to understand that when we talk about the J. Carlton Jam Center, there are after-school tutoring that goes on there about 3 or 4 days a week, and it's very valuable and very needed in that area. So again, I know we would like to have creativity that you guys speaking about, and I think majority of the people here and the people that's looking at television right now, looking at us debate this, is that, again, when we speak about creativity, that's a big word today. Try things new. And I think the people want to know why on the north side of town, we are trying things new. And that's what I think the big issue is right now. So the proposals out there, I hope it works. Again, why on the north side? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have, Sidra, go ahead.
And actually, I want to add to that, not only do we have the New Hope Tutoring Center at the J. Carlton James facility, which I've spoken to Mr. John Newman this week, and we got a letter of intent from them this morning. So they are actually tutoring as we speak today. They'll be tutoring on tomorrow. They'll be tutoring when school starts. And actually, they're going to be increasing their hours because their students are going to be going to the Online Learning Academy. So we're going to be opening up even more opportunities. They recognize the value of the center. We recognize the value that they bring to the children in the neighborhood. And they are also coming to the table with more resources so that we can continue this partnership. No problem. Secondly, I also don't want to leave out the New Vision leadership program that's run by Ms. Erica Williams. That's currently at the Domain Center. She's actually more interested in moving to another center, to the Bowles Center. It's better suited to her needs, to her students. She attracts kids for her program from not just, that district, not just the city of Lafayette, not just the parish of Lafayette, but from all over. So that's going to continue to be a resource to her. She's going to continue to be a resource to our youth, and we're already working on it. So I just wanted to add to it that not only is that continuing to happen, we're expanding it, and that's not the only center that's being used for mentoring, tutoring, and those types of activities outside of recreation. So, yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Rubin, you have the floor.
Thank you. We're talking about the rec centers, keeping the rec centers in open and everything of such. What about the 37 employees? Are we able to do anything about keeping our 37 employees as well? If we're going to keep the rec centers open, we're going to need janitorials, we're going to need supplies, and I see that we're cutting janitorial supplies and utilities like 60%. So can we keep those 37 people employed as well?
So that's as I understood Mr. Lazard's motion, that's his motion, is that we add the 37 people back, which is going to be to the tune of about $3.5 million. And while I have the microphone again, I need to remind you that the city is very dependent on its ability to borrow money for infrastructure improvements, for roads, for drainage. As we need to borrow that money, we have to go before the rating agencies. When we use fund balance for reoccurring costs, they will count that against us in our bond rating. So our ability to continue to borrow money for infrastructure in the city of Lafayette will be affected by the use of city general fund balance for reoccurring costs. They ask that all the time, and as your fund balance starts to change, as COVID right now with the decrease in sales taxes, they're very concerned about that. We'll learn in the next week or two what our current bond rating is, because we just underwent one. We did it through the internet and through virtual meetings, but it's very important for the city to maintain its bond rating and its ability to borrow, because we borrow constantly for infrastructure growth. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of hope for the parish general fund, because the parish general fund is not in good shape. But the parish has not had to borrow for infrastructure growth for some time now. So should they ever want to, and you go back to the voters to ask the voters for that permission, you need to be aware of how that affects the parish general fund also.
Well, actually, I kind of knew that, but I just wanted to clear that up for the people that was listening, to make sure that they knew that Mr. Lazar was trying to get the 37 people on as well. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Lazard, you have the floor.
Oh, I'll pass, I'm sorry.
All right, council members, with your permission, I'm loving the dialogue, but we still need to start the budget process for this. So let's go ahead and dive into the book. I know you're going to all have some line item adjustments, so let's just get started. We are on operating expenses on page 198. Page 198 at the top. Councilman Lewis.
Yes, Laurie.
Yes, sir.
I noticed for instance, group health insurance and retirement Medicaid, all this in consideration of the Mr. Boudreaux that retired and the other gentleman that just Frank that resigned, is that included in there as well?
Pardon?
Those figures that we're looking at, is that all these figures including with Mr. Gerald Boudreaux, the one that resigned from his position?
For group health insurance? I'm not sure I understand. Are you
retirement.
questioning the decrease in group
Yes,
health insurance?
right. That's my
Okay, so
question.
the decrease in group health insurance is directly attributable to the decrease in the number of employees. So along with what Mr. Lazard has requested, the reinstatement of those employees, if that amendment passes, this group insurance number would also go up as we
Okay.
put those new employees, as we put those employees back on.
Correct.
So it is down because of the decrease in employees.
Okay.
It's not based on who retired or left.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have a question about line item for directors, director salary 201-610050000-0 personnel salaries. That's the director's position, correct?
No, that would be a couple of positions in there. So that's the director's office. When we get to the Manning table, it'll be broken out. More than likely, it's the director, a secretary, or
Then I'm
something
going to
like
buzz back in for that because I'd like to make a line item adjustment there. So, all right, council members, we're still on page 198. We're moving to the middle end of 198.
So on page 198, on this bottom half, and I didn't check with Kearney, but this is where I'd like to move that 40,000 out of parish general fund capital outlay to maybe a parish general fund contractual services, so we could maybe mow some parks in the unincorporated area. So with Kearney's approval, account number one, it's right in the middle, the first line item under operations and maintenance, account number 105-6120-89000, capital outlay. And ask Kearney if we can change that to 510-6120-70907, contractual services. So that would be a Parks and Recreation contractual services of $40,000. Is that good, Kearney?
Okay. I need to get approval on my end for yours as well? Do I need to get a motion?
Probably a general amendment.
Okay, can I
Nobody
get a
objects.
motion by John Gilbo? For a general amendment.
Thank you.
And I don't need a second, so thank you. All right. Councilman Lewis, you have the floor.
Yes, Laurie, 78000-0, uninsured losses. I see there's a 91% decrease.
He's in the middle of the page.
Okay.
He's
So-
right in the middle of the page.
Remember, what happens with uninsured losses, because we're self-insured, we take the actual losses that a department experiences last year, and they pay up the following year. So we'll take an estimate. So there was obviously some larger claims in the previous year. what we do for the budget as we're going into the future, we look at the losses we've incurred and trying to figure out how to budget for that next year. We'll look at the losses we've incurred November through April, and we'll double it. So they've incurred maybe 10, 12,000, and we just doubled it. So we are hopefully going to experience a reduction, but it's based on actual losses incurred the prior year. And as you remember, during the year, if it ends up that we need more money, we'll come to you with an uninsured losses budget amendment. Once we finish the audit next year, usually around May or June, we come to you with that budget amendment.
So I guess it's safe to say as we go along through the budget, we'll see that mostly
You'll
through
see a
every
lot of
department.
variation in the uninsured losses, yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm moving on to 199, page 199. Middle, 199. Bottom of 199. Going to page 200. No, go ahead, buzz in. Go ahead. Councilman Lazar, Councilman Rubin, you have the floor.
Okay, that's what I mentioned earlier about the janitorial supplies and the utilities all being cut. How are we supposed to maintain? You know, talked about an appearance, in the, in our facilities. If we don't have the supplies and the ground maintenance, I'm just curious about this. How are we supposed to maintain everything? Is this with maybe the ground maintenance? Is it that maybe that's GOMO now? That's why we took it out? I don't know.
What line item are you
I'm
looking?
sorry. I apologize.
That's okay, you're going to read.
65,
Okay.
65000-0.
At the top.
And janitorial supplies. On page 199,
On the top. On top,
towards the top.
yeah.
Right, I see. So both of those were zeroed out. And as Sidra said in her opening remarks, that we've made some drastic cuts here, that we know that things, as the Parks Department is reorganized or the model changes, there may be some movement in between line items to accomplish some of these things. If it's necessary, let's say to take some printing and duplication or contractual services, I do see that, yeah, look, contractual services, GOMO, is up to 300,000, whereas before it was zero. So that's probably accounts for that difference. But if they end up not needing it, then they could move that money back into the janitorial supplies or the equipment maintenance.
Okay, and I asked that leading up to a particular question. Have you guys been to the parks since we changed over to the new process? Have y'all been to the grounds as of lately? No, I don't know if there's change or not, but the parks aren't being taken care of properly as far as for like grass maintenance and things of such.
I'm going to let Citra speak to that. You want to go ahead, sis?
Well, I'll just say that there's been no process change. I mean, we're proposing a budget, we are proposing changes, but there's been no changes. So you asked if I've been to I actually visited all the parks, I think, in June. So I have visited them, but I do want to say that there have been no process changes.
The grass cutting, we're not doing it by GOMO yet?
Some parks, we only have about 6 parks currently on GOMO.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, because I know of some of them that's been doing the GOMO, and the grass is, and that's why I was asking this question.
And to be fair to you, we are in concurrent with, that we have to work with some of our vendors on GOMO. Ross Gresham is he's a stickler for what those parks look like, and we are actually working with our vendors to make sure that they meet our specs. We wrote very specific specifications that they've not yet met, and they don't get paid until they meet those specifications.
Okay, so you guys are
we
aware of what I'm talking about.
We are holding their feet to the fire as it relates to our GOMO vendors, absolutely.
Thank you.
Our expectations are high, and they're not meeting them yet.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Carlson, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this should be directed to you, Lori, or Sidra. I'm looking at line 67,000-0, the utilities. We're looking at an almost 60% decrease in utility costs. Now, like, I get turning off light switches when you leave the room, but I've never been able to cut 60% from my light bill. Can you explain? I'm just not sure how we're going to keep all of these rec centers open, but cut our utility bill 60%.
So as a reminder that it's not just rec centers that are utilities, a lot of these utilities are driven also by the parks and specifically ball fields.
Okay.
There are, a lot of expenses that are associated and tied with that. So as we get into this, opening up this, this new way of thinking and working with the municipalities to take over some of these ball fields, working with associations to help us with. We've talked with athletics, maybe there's a new way that we can bring down the electricity costs by, making games a little bit earlier in the day so that we know that they wrap up by 8 or 9 o'clock. And there's a lot of opportunities we believe, for us to bring down these utilities. We realize that this is one of the really large cuts, and this could be something that we have to come back later and say, we've got to make either administrative moves here, or we're going to have to ask for some more money. We recognize this line item in particular may have been cut too low. This is what was put forth by the department. It's probably a little bit too aggressive, but this is where we're starting.
Okay.
Councilman Lewis, you have the floor.
Thank you. Sidra, I have one question for you. I heard you say something about 6 parks are on GOMO, I think. Can you tell me which one they are?
I don't know off the top of my head, but more importantly, we are looking to, number one, ensure that those parks the vendors who are cutting those parks are meeting our specifications, and we're looking at putting on a significant number more parks on GOMO in the coming, but I don't have those, I'm sorry. I can get them to you, though.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. Council members, just a reminder that let's stick to questions that are specific to the budget. Any other questions specific to parks about what we are doing day to day? Let's send those in an email. That way we can keep through this budget. We were on page 200. Page 200.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Clarification, Mr. Lewis, was that a request for information? I think she said that she would provide the list, okay, the list of parks that's on GOMO.
Thank you. All right, page 200. Middle of 200. Bottom of 200. Top of 201. Councilman Lazard, you have the floor.
I'm not sure if I made my amendment a little too soon or not. But really the intention was where we see all these 100%, I think Lori understands what my intentions were, where we see all the 100%, the intent was that we would basically resume and continue where we are now post-November 1st, going forward. So just want to make sure the public understands that.
Right, so while it's appropriate that this is a separate amendment, I think we also should add it to the wrap-up item list.
Sure.
Because that's when that's the first time you'll actually see the details after I work them out with Mr. Lazard.
Just want to make sure the public understands that's what the general intent was.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to go ahead and ask for wrap-up information of the budgeted for last year versus the actual of all the line items that he's looking to replace back into the budget, because I can know that sometimes can vary for what we budgeted, say for this said building or this said utility, and what we actually spent that year, in last calendar year, last fiscal year is fine with me. Got that? Yeah. Perfect, thank you.
And
Request that a wrap-up.
I agree.
Thank you. All right, we're still on 201, bottom of are you done, Mr. Lazard?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilwoman Cook.
Yes, I have a question on, let's see, that would be 201-6132, 6700, utilities, on page 200. Yes, I'm sorry. We're talking about the tennis facilities, I'm assuming, and so that's zeroed out. Does that mean the lights are out as of November 1st, or? We're still negotiating, I'm assuming?
Correct.
Okay, and because some of those salaries will change because of what we're working on, so like the salaries under tennis, the top item, we could move some of that money into the utilities if needed. So we'll do a budget adjustment, I'm just nod, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, top of 201. 201. Bottom 201.
When you get to those areas, say the areas. Centers and when you get to the areas, say what areas. Okay.
Oh, we got it. Page 202. And council members, whenever you go to make an amendment, be sure to say what page, what area, and then read the number. That way we can all get caught up and read along with you. Just a reminder. 202, bottom of 202. Top of 203.
Bottom of 202 and 203, we're moving into the golf courses.
And all the golf courses are located in the city of Lafayette, right? Yes, Kearney's nodding. Okay. Sidra, you have the floor.
Yes, I failed to mention this earlier in my opening, and so I apologize. We, very early on, we met with the golf courses, the golf pros and the managers, and, these are some really innovative, entrepreneurial-minded individuals. Not only do, they have their own skin in the game, they've got a real investment in each one of their courses, but they've also got ideas on how they can increase the revenues for their particular courses. They're obviously bringing a lot of revenue. They are expensive to maintain, but they've got a plan of action, and we're going to be coming to you, sooner rather than later with the requested ordinance, as Lori indicated earlier, with a request to be able to give some flexibility within those greens fees. These guys know who their players are. They know who their audience is. They know where the opportunities are to bring in more golfers, and they've got a great plan. If there happens to be a weekend, where both UL and LSU, let's hope they're all playing football, are both away, they know that that's an opportunity for them to bring in more players, but they need to sort of do what I would call a flash sale, and drop those rates. And these guys work together. They don't compete against each other. So, they would get together and say, okay, for the wetlands, we're going to offer this flash sale in the morning, a combined golf cart and greens fees at this rate. We can get the players, and then in the afternoon, we'll do it at one of the other courses. And honestly, it benefits the players too, because for the real avid golfers, they can actually play both courses if they have the energy. But I just wanted to put that out there because, this is evidence of, what I'm seeing all across the department is that the answers and the keys to some of our issues really lie within the people who are running the department right now and working inside of it. So I forgot to mention that in my opening, and I want to let you know that is coming, and that they fully, as we know, that they have been, their subsidy for the golf courses has been removed, and, they're ready to tackle that.
Wonderful. And can I get confirmation? I know Kearney was nodding, but I'm getting a text message from somebody that works in parks telling me that one of them is in Youngsville. So are all 3 golf courses inside the city of Lafayette?
Yes.
They are?
Yes.
So person, you text me, you were wrong.
It's an annexation, and when you look at the district boundaries, you'll see
Okay.
that it runs right along and then scoops in the.
Lovely, thank you. All right, moving on, 203. Sidra, can you buzz out?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. 203. Going to 204. Page 204. Bottom of 204. And top of 205. Not seeing any more discussion on operating expenses. Council members, we're moving to page 283, where we're going to discuss 5-year capital. 283.
On page 283, it's at the bottom, it's that bottom section.
So council members, just look towards the middle bottom, and we're just going on that small section for right now. Page 283.
And it's item 85, 86, and 90.
Councilwoman Cook, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just have a question about the budget in terms of, and I might need to speak with someone well, Sidra, sorry, you're up again. The lights at Como Rec Center for the pickleball courts, I'm going to pickleball again, sorry. I'm not seeing them. Are they in here and I'm just missing them in terms of the capital projects?
Because you got grant money for that, didn't you?
Not grant money, but they were like ready to turn them on as far as everything was ready to go. So I'm just curious what happened to that money.
Oh, I thought I had your mic on the whole time, sorry.
I mean, the courts are completed, and I think that was the last piece of it was the lighting, and I think
Right.
it was actually, had been
We've discussed
budgeted.
this several times, and I know that this was something that we were working on, and I was told it was done, so I think we have to defer to Lori on it.
This is parish, this is improvements being paid by the parish general fund. So I've actually asked to take this 40,000 out and put that towards mowing. This is the 40. What you're looking for is probably on the city side,
Okay.
Which is page 90? No.
so
Are we there yet?
let's look on page 290 and see if we.
Page 290, council members, we're just going to move on to page 290.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay. I see line item 159, the Como Pickleball Courts 4. Would that be the lighting? Is that what we're going with? I don't see anything in the proposed budget for that. I'm just curious if I'm missing it. I could be missing it, so.
So it has a balance right now of 128,000.
Right,
So we're not adding anything?
correct. I guess I just needed an update if that was still, again, from someone in Parks and Rec to make sure that money was still earmarked for the lights. But are you pretty sure that's it?
Yes.
Okay.
I've asked multiple times.
Okay, that's all I need. Okay, sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Sidra, did you want to speak?
Nope.
Thank you. I'm just going to leave your mic on.
Okay.
So you don't have to buzz in. All right, we're on page 290. Any questions? If not, the next section we're going to move on to is page 313, 2021 capital, 313. Page 313. And that should only be, let's see, in the middle of the page, starting in the middle of the page. 313. Page 314.
So for the council members that are new, you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, I just saw this on the other pages. You're right, you did. The other pages is the 5-year capital, and it's summarized a little bit more. When you get to this section here, it's itemized in detail.
Okay. 315. Oh, Councilman Lazard, you have the floor.
Laura,
Yes, sir.
where we have these general categories at, and this is a request for information, can you give us a list of where these particular items are allocated for, what facilities? Just a request for information. They can wait.
I'll have to reach out to the
Okay,
department.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said just a request for information.
All right.
Thank you.
That information will be requested for wrap-up or for information. Okay, we're done. Page 215. I don't see any other questions. Moving on to the Manning tables, and that's going to be starting at 338, page 338. Middle of page 338.
Ms. Abear, you said you wanted to make
Yeah.
a change on the salary?
I'd like information for wrap-up, and this may come from Sidra, I would assume, is I'd be curious to see, because we did have a longtime director with us he was with us a long time, so I know he's gotten some salary, increases throughout the years. I'd like to see if we can find out what are comparable salaries, because obviously you're not going to be the interim director forever.
I'm also not getting the salary.
I think that it was very important to note. You're absolutely right. Hear that, public? Everyone heard that. I'd be interested to know comparable cities in this director's position, what their salaries would be. That way we can address it accordingly. And I will make that edit at wrap up.
Sure.
Thank you. And Sidra, are we doing a search for a new director?
We have not begun a search. Obviously, we've got a lot on our plate right now. And, we want to make sure that Parks and Rec is on good footing. And I think that's going to be the easiest way to attract the next best director.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that update. All right, still on page 338. Going on to page 339. Page 339. Then the top of 340 only. I don't see any council members. Do you have any wrap-up that you'd like to say, Sidra, since you're the interim director?
Actually, I'm just overseeing the department. I'm not the interim director, if we're going to speak technicalities. But just thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the opportunity to hopefully, give some more information about the future of the department. Hopefully, I've offered some comfort. And I tell you that this is a really wonderful staff. This is, not an easy time, but they've all stepped up to the challenge. They are all taking on additional responsibilities, and it's been a real pleasure to continue working with them. So I thank the staff very much for everything that they've done to get us here today. And thank you as well.
Thank you. All right, Veronica, I'm sure we have comments from the public.
Would you say it, 1 or 2, 22?
We have 22.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right, let's buckle up. Let's go.
Let's go. Buddy Webb?
All right, and everyone, if you're coming up to speak, you're going to be using both podiums, and then we're going to alternate because we're going to have somebody wiping them down in between. So come on, and who's after Buddy? That way,
Rick Swanson.
Rick Swanson is next. And again, council members, again, public, I want to reiterate
It doesn't matter which one you start with.
Let's keep our comments on the budget specifically. Let's keep them respectful.
Oh, I always keep it
Especially you, Buddy Webb. Buddy Webb, no relation.
I asked for the allotted a little bit more than 5 minutes because the first meeting we had about it, I had COVID and I've gotten over it and wasn't allowed to speak because of that. And the second meeting I was really upset about because I came here to make a comment and was denied that because we didn't get a second from the parish. The last time I checked, I pay city and parish tax. And to be denied, and I have not addressed this group in the 72 years of my life, but it's a point where today that I think it's imperative that I make my point. I've been involved in this community my entire adult life growing up in North Lafayette. I was one of 10 children. Went through J.W. Falk, MP Moss, Northside High School, and USL. I'm a combat veteran of Vietnam. The only time I ever went to camp as a child was boot camp, and I didn't particularly care for it too much. But that's just because, and I went to Vietnam and served with all my brothers and sisters from every color and creed in this country. But what I have been involved in over the years, I first was with a group called CODA, Citizens of District A was original, and then was Citizen Direct After with Joe Dennis, Dr. Barranco, et cetera, and a number of whites in North Lafayette. Our biggest problem was getting equity because the south side of Lafayette was getting a bigger proportion of things than it was. So that was an ongoing battle. Then I joined a committee called Rebuild Lafayette North. We had frontage roads that were being proposed, and it looked like it was the greatest idea that was going to bring all kind of revenue on I-10. That's probably sitting in some big warehouse with a number of the other studies that the city has done. Never happened. I've seen a deterioration in North Lafayette. Over the years, I was involved in starting Habitat for Humanities. I actually hired the first people at Goodwill Industries, and I've tutored at MP Moss for about 16 years, and I'm currently now on the board of New Hope. When I heard about the center being closed, naturally I wanted to choke someone, no offense, Josh, because I know of the kind of work and the intensiveness and the care that we put into the people. If you would have tutored as many children as I had over the years and looked into the empty faces of these children who had no one to care about, and we were there as a buffer to try to make a difference in these children's lives, it really gets you and it touches you as a Christian. And it should touch all of you. These rec centers are not just rec centers, they're sanctuaries. When I was a kid, we had the community center, which was the Domain Center. I went there and learned to box, and you could tell by my face I didn't do too well. But the point is, I had a place to go. It was a sanctuary because we had nothing else to do. I don't think people understand children of poverty. I don't think people understand the need, not only in the black community, but in the community in North Lafayette. And I'm tired of being the stepchildren of Lafayette. We have a situation now that the current city pays the bulk of all the expenses. I think they pay about 80% of the legal expenses here. They paid for this room. They paid for the bulk of the administrative costs for the mayor and salary. And yet they're going to have a voice to deny me to speak like the last time I was here. I found that completely offensive because I deserve a voice in this community because I have earned it.
Hey, guys.
And you're talking about parks and recreation. We've been operating on a millage from 1961. You could buy a new car for $1,800 in 1961 and a house for $19,000. I'm amazed that Gerald Boudreaux was able to run this program as long as he did, but it could be so much more. You worry about incarceration, you worry about funding the jail, that's no problem. We're not going to have an issue with that. But you don't do anything preventatively. It's like if you never put oil in your car, your engine's going to burn. Like the old Fram oil commercial, you pay me now, pay me later. We have the worst education system in the country and the highest incarceration rate, and I am embarrassed. Because we deserve.
Uncle Buddy, your time is up. Thank you so much. Thank you.
5 minutes is over.
Yes, sir.
That's what 72 years in this community is worth 5 minutes. So, you know what I've got to say? All of you,
Uncle
go
Buddy,
sit and.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Rick Swanson, followed by Ian Swanson.
Mayor, President, and members of the councils, my name is Rick Swanson. I live in Andy Knockin's City District and Kevin Knockin's Parish District. I thank you for this chance to speak in favor of preventing the unjust and unjustified defending of 4 recreation centers and their workers. As just announced, a limited money has been found to fund the targeted rec centers, but not their laid-off workers. I present here my ideas because I share some of the concerns of the council members about this. So I present here my ideas for funding the rec centers and their workers. According to a detailed budget analysis by The Current, these proposed layoffs and cuts are probably unnecessary. If I understand their budget analysis correctly, the draft budget includes $17 million in excess reserves beyond the baseline $20 million of reserves. The draft budget also probably underestimates the final budget balance by at least $10 million. The draft budget also probably underestimates sales tax revenue by $8 million, does not include either $6 million in federal COVID response money, nor almost $900,000 of unallocated CREATE funds. At the very least, some conditional set-asides could be reserved, and if these funds materialize, as they in all likelihood will, then they can pay for the rec centers and their laid-off workers. 2, These cuts have been defended in large part on the basis of financial sustainability. Yet the rec centers not targeted for defunding have average operating losses 3.5 times the average operating losses of the rec centers targeted for defunding. Thus, the proposed cuts contradict some of the very criteria given to justify the cuts. Indeed, as just announced, although the slide said the golf courses are self-funded, if you looked in the lower right-hand corner, it said does not include $519,000 in capital outlays. That's taxpayer subsidies. So take those subsidies and give them to the rec centers. We don't need golf, but there will be tremendous harm done to children who need rec center services at a critical time in their educational and personal development. This is why the Police Association of Lafayette has urged that all the rec centers remain fully funded. All of you have spoken in the past about the importance of priorities in government spending. I agree, but if we prioritize golf over our children, then our priorities are severely misplaced. The Mayor President has said government should be run like a business, and earlier in this meeting stated that the #1 resource of the Parks Department was its employees. When the COVID recession hit, across our nation, countless patriotic business owners and executives took pay cuts themselves to avoid layoffs to lower paid workers. Looking at employee salaries in the Manning table starting at page 325 of the draft budget, 85 LCG employees will earn over $80,000 each. A 10% pay cut for this group results in a savings of at least $680,000, and a freeze at that level could then recur annually until no longer needed. These savings could help pay for worker salaries at the rec centers. The Mayor President has said we all need to tighten our belts, but in the draft budget, some people lose their pants while others get fat. 4, in the draft budget, City of Lafayette taxpayers will pay $3.5 million into the parish park system, but parish residents outside the Lafayette city limits will pay almost $0 into the park system. The parish has now offered to provide $200,000 for parks and recreation. This is a step in the right direction, but it is still only 5.7% of what city residents will pay. It will not restore any of the 37 jobs eliminated, and it is only for 1 year. I urge the city and parish councils to negotiate a more fair and permanent solution to this funding imbalance so that our children are no longer threatened and their workers who help them at these rec centers are no longer threatened by harmful, unnecessary, and ill-conceived budget cuts. Mayor President and members of the council, any defunding of the targeted rec centers is an indefensible reverse Robin Hood. It takes from those who have less and gives to those who have more. Given the historic racial inequities in Lafayette Parish that still affect us today, let us not perpetuate or even worsen those inequities. I urge you to do the right thing and keep all the rec centers and their employees fully and permanently funded. As I and others have shown, this funding is doable in the budget if creative, fair, and responsible fiscal management is used. Again, if our children are not our top priority, then our priorities are severely misplaced. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Ann Swanson, followed by Bill
your applause.
Lindecker.
I'll allow you all to have your round of applause at the end, but let's keep the round of applause until then. Thank you. Next speaker, next 2 speakers.
Ann Swanson. She needs to come here. You could come to this side, but I know that's your husband. Followed by Bill Lindecker.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Swanson, and I reside in Andy Knockan's district as well as Kevin Knockan's district. And so I had some remarks, and we learned some new things, so it changed it up a little bit. So I'm a little thrown, so I want to just admit that out of the gate. But I also want to share some things that I know for sure. And what I know for sure is when I learned that those 4 parks that are in communities where primarily black people live and no parks in communities where primarily white people live were going to be closed and cut, I knew for sure that was unacceptable. And that's not okay, and that doesn't represent the community that I want to live in, and I can't be silent about it. So that is what I know for sure. I'm really heartened to see that we've moved forward in this process, and I'm really heartened to see the parish stepping up providing some money, creative solutions, Sidra, everything you're doing to acknowledge the employees and learn from them. But there was a trust that was broken, and that trust needs to be restored. And when that first decision was made, people were not even brought to the table to ask how to be part of the solution. And that is absolutely a necessity moving forward. And given that that did not happen and that trust was so severely broken, I completely support Mr. Lazard's amendment, keeping the 37 employees. And, maybe next year we can all come together, spend a year figuring out how to do the right thing and how to serve our people best. Maybe then we can talk about that, some other solutions. But we are not ready for that. We do not have the trust of the community to do that right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. All right, next.
And just to be clear, I've heard a couple of people already say it. The 37 employees are being put, as the intent of that motion, the general amendment, separate amendment now that he made, was to put the 37 employees back into the budget.
That's correct.
Okay,
Thank you
so
for
I just
that.
want to clear that up. I heard that a couple of times.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Bill Linedecker, followed by Takuna El Shabazz.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Bill Linedecker, and I reside in Andy Nakhan's district and Mr. Rubin. First of all, I support keeping the recreation centers open and all 37 employees working. I support the ordinance which seeks to keep city money inside the city and under the direction of the city council. John F. Kennedy once said, "Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix blame for the past. Let us accept our own responsibility for the future." Parks and Recreation has a funding issue. That's obvious. An antiquated, outdated, insufficient funding mechanism which is unable to support the facilities and programs our citizens need and demand. So what's the plan? I don't know. Lots of confusion. I listened to all the explanations and I'm still a little confused. So let's just consider a few ideas as it relates to the general budget, because the idea is if you save money in the general budget, there might be a little bit more for other places. Consider eliminating the unincorporated areas. Lafayette Parish no longer has the luxury of having unincorporated areas. Place every square mile of the parish in one of the cities. Create streamlined and efficient services. Avoid double taxing some parish residents. Each city pays an equitable share of parish expenses based on a predetermined, agreed-upon set of metrics. Reduce attorney fees. By the end of the fiscal year, LCG will have paid out over $2 million in legal fees. At many council meetings, there are often 3 attorneys. And oh, by the way, let's have LCG entities stop suing each other. Reduce administrative costs. Last year at this time, LUS Fiber had 1 director, a salary of $250,000. Now we have 2, salary $400,000. Last year we had 1 public works director, salary $125,000. Now 3 salaries, approximately $375,000. Ways to increase revenue. Please consider an LCG contract surcharge. You want to do business with LCG? A small surcharge is added. That surcharge goes to Parks and Recs, Community Development, or into a corpus account which accrues interest and is then directed to other departments. Consider selling, renting, bartering, exchanging assets. Make some money, lower expenses. Consider selling LCG space for advertising. Every day that there is not an advertisement on those rolling billboards we call city buses, LCG loses money. RFPs and public-private partnerships need to be considered. Please consider this. The domain Lida Recreation Center. Lida makes investments all over town. They buy buildings. Lida has lots of money. Make an investment in Parks and Recreation on the north side. The Hyman Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office Recreation Center. What better way to foster and improve relationships between law enforcement and the public? As I end, I would like to cordially and respectfully challenge the Mayor President to do 2 things. Number 1 is to increase your communication between you, your staff, the council, and the citizens of Lafayette Parish. More is always better. Second, I would challenge you to expand your circle of influence, to seek assistance from a wider, more inclusive group. Everyone in this room has an idea that's worthy of consideration. No one has all the answers. John Wooden, a famous basketball coach, once said, "It's what you learn after you know it all that counts." If our motto is going to be one parish, one future, let's make sure that one parish includes all the areas of the parish, and that one future includes all those who live in the parish, and that everyone pays an equitable amount and benefits equally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Takuna El Shabazz, followed by Jared Eubanks.
Takuna El Shabazz, President and founder of CCBE, Conscientious Council of Black Elders. I listened to many speak this afternoon, and many of my questions were answered. Perhaps not sufficiently, but was answered. The question for me at this point is that whether the black community should believe what we heard. I don't believe that there was really a money problem regarding the suggestions of the closing of the 4 centers in the black community. It's a matter of not having the will to do what is right in the black community. But what I do know is this, is that the city owns those 4 recreational centers, and it is the taxpayers who pay for them, and it's the taxpayers' money who are supposed to maintain those centers. That is very clear. My only question is, what other funding comes from this body that goes to facilities that is not owned by the city of Lafayette? The black community is dealing with the ultimate insult every day with this dorm that you insultingly call the Cajun dorm that is not owned by the city. It's owned by the state and UL. But much of the funds for operation comes from the city and this budget that you're reviewing today. This is a form of taxation without representation for the black community. The suggestion of the closing of 4 centers in our community and funding that kind of facility is an abuse of the financial public fund. We believe that the funding of UL is taking away from the budget that could be considered in your review, that could put back to fund the recreational centers that you propose has to be closed because of budgetary issues. I don't believe that it's a money problem. I believe it's an attitudinal problem. I think there's a lack of will to do the right thing where the right thing needs to be done. So I had a script to present to you, but I realized that I'm talking to deaf people. That's not going to work. Because what we need here is a commitment to do the right thing. And that part I do not believe. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt for a minute and assume that what you say will come to pass. But spend no more time trying to convince the black community that somehow this money or these plans or these ideas just miraculously presented themselves so that now you can work on not closing the 4 centers. I'm going to say this in closing. I've been a teacher for 28 years. I worked into the juvenile facility for 15 years. And many of the young people that got diverted from coming to the juvenile facility come from the work that is done in recreational centers. I know the realities of what takes place in those recreational centers. As a coach for over 28 years, I know the impact and I know the influence that comes from those recreational centers. So don't play games with the black community. You have a trust factor. You have a trust factor that no plan, no matter how well you present it, no plan is no better than the person that are left in charge to carry it out. There is no law that's effective unless you have to evaluate the people that are to carry out the law. And right now, you have a trust factor. I like what I heard, but I don't believe you yet. So we're going to check you out. And believe me, there will be a response from the black community. Our children are important to us, even if it's not for you. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Jared Eubanks, followed by Tara Laxey.
Hi, my name is Jared Eubanks. I'm a member of City Council District 2. I'll admit I'm a bit thrown off right now, as I think we all are, by the sudden large promises regarding the Parks and Rec, without really a clear explanation of how that's going to happen. I mean, first steps, are we recalling the open RFPs for them right now, since we apparently have this resolved? Anyway, I want to thank everyone here for what I'm sure is a long meeting that we're all here for. I had a chance to say some of this to the City Council Tuesday night. Because I think we can't really talk about this budget without talking about the reason an ordinance had to be introduced in a special meeting Tuesday night.
Keep it about the budget. Okay.
The entire parish passed Fix the Charter. They want to see councils that more accurately reflect their concerns and spend time working on their issues. Josh Carlson stated that he thinks as long as the parish council gives $1, the parish council deserves an equal say. Moving past the fact that I think this is fundamentally wrong and abusive of our system, the parish is going to have to negotiate on so many of its priorities that it is actually paying for. The issue at stake will be the allocation formulas that have been tilted for years, having the city cover a disproportionately large portion. Those allocation formulas on items they're actually paying for will make or break the parish budget. So I ask that, knowing this, the parish council is willing to make compromises here and allow the city that virtually funds the entire Parks and Rec to run it according to their priorities. Earlier this week, the parish gave control of a parish park to Broussard in a joint governance agreement. I think this is a great idea. I just don't understand why we would now be reluctant to allow the city of Lafayette to control the parks it pays for. Speaking of priorities, I know that you have all heard from people far more eloquent and far closer to this subject than me. Between the last regular council meeting that went until 3 a.m., the one before that actually, the special council meeting where unfortunately many constituents were here but did not have a chance to speak, Parish President Guillory's last town hall where everyone in attendance was there to speak about our parks, the special city council just Tuesday night, and of course the other speakers here today, this is a priority. There's no doubt about that, and people are hurting to be heard and supported. This situation, of course, is precipitated by these looming budget cuts. And to touch on that, Parish President Guillory has fulfilled his duty. He has presented his recommended budget to you, regardless of how reasonable or appropriate it may or may not be. However, it is the council's job to adopt a final budget. The councils, as our city parish attorneys informed us earlier this year, are not co-equal forms of government, but above the parish president's office. This is all to say that the buck stops with y'all. This is the council's responsibility. I implore you not to lose sight of that in what I can't help but imagine will be one of the roughest budget processes in Lafayette's memory. As to the golf courses, for them to be self-sufficient, disregarding even any capital project money, they have to bring in an additional 33% in revenue over last year, 50% over what were projected this year. That is a tall order that I don't know if a few flash sales can fulfill. Lastly, I think we forget city residents are parish residents. Sometimes it feels like we talk about the parish as if it doesn't have any responsibility to the residents of the city. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it. Next
Tara Laxey, followed by Jacqueline Cochran.
Good afternoon, Tara Laxey, Unity 7. growing up low income, you kind of learn how to tweak a budget, and you find out really what is a need and what is a want. So I've just been coming up with some numbers, and I don't know everything, y'all know more than me, but here are some suggestions from a low-income child raised in the projects. Josh Guillory makes $119,000 a year. City shares between, well, the city pays 79% of the salary, parish 21%. Why can't we pay 50% each, and that would save the city $34,510? Josh created 2 positions to help him do his job. Nobody needs 2 positions. So why don't we get rid of one? Half of the 238 comes to a savings of $119,000. The Alfred Muttal statue costs the taxpayers anywhere between $10,000 to $12,000 a month, said by Carlos Harvin on July 2nd, 2020. It comes in a total of $120,000 at the minimum. So we paying that for security and maintenance of some cement from a slave owner.
Keep it to the park.
So this is, if you take this, what I'm suggesting with Josh, the 2 positions and the statue, that would be a savings of $273,510. Carlos Harvin is supposed to bridge the gap in between the community. He's really not doing a good job. He's going to be making $60,000 after his $10,000 raise for being here for 7 months. Juvenile detention is getting an extra $60,000 while we were threatened with keeping our teenage children's minds idle. So if you add those 2 together, that's another savings of $120,000. I consider this a waste of $393,510 out of the city taxpayer's pocket. Robichaux Center is in a negative of $57,545, but yet our 4 centers were only in the negative of $48,345. You cannot tell me that this was not racially motivated. I am sorry. And like a lady said a while ago, the trust has definitely been broken. And yes, I want to go back to Mr. Nakhan from the other night, his comment, and this has to do with the budget. In regards to Josh saying that the centers, he didn't say that the centers were going to be closed. If you go to YouTube, at the 4-minute, 10-second mark is whenever Josh says that he was closing down our 4 centers. So, with that being said, I am extremely upset that our joint council altogether has not publicly asked Josh what in the heck was he thinking by spewing that out on a video in regards to shutting down 4 centers that basically take care of, represent the Northside community, predominantly black and low-income families. I would also like to say that that wasted money of over $393,000 might be able to keep our 37 employees working and take care of their families, because it's not just about 37 individuals. It is about 37 families. And with COVID, we are already at a crisis. So maybe we can consider that. What I'd also like to say is, I do believe that as you sit here and you represent us, that our mayor parish president should not be able to get away with lack of racial sensitivity. I believe that he does need to be confronted. I believe that he needs to acknowledge that that video, what he originally said at that 4-minute, 10-second mark, that he was actually wrong. I do not believe Puff the Magic Dragon has just mysteriously appeared and said, poof, here's some money, we're gonna save you. We demand true, honest, fair, balanced leadership from the Joint Council and the mayor. It seems like pretty much all of you don't mind taking tax money from the North Side, predominantly black, low-income families, while in return giving us the middle finger, because that's what it really seems like. It seems like in this situation with all this wasted money, the North Side is being told, hey, there's a big F you. I am not the one to sit down and allow y'all to do this to my my community. Northside families
Thank you.
matter.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jacqueline Cochran, followed by Judy Placer.
Reminding you all to bring the conversation back to the parks budget specifically. Just bring it back.
Is Jacqueline Cochran here? Okay. Judy Placer? Judy Placer will be followed by Maria Collins.
Oh, okay, that one over there. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Judy Placer. I'm chairman of the Parks and Recs Commission. And do I have any more commission members here? I don't think so. I'd like to introduce you, but I don't think so. But anyway, first of all, I just wanted to say, I went to the LCG website and I printed this out. It's all about Parks and Recs. It is 217, but it has all the parks in it. And I really recommend for you to get in your car and drive around and look at our 35 or 34 parks. Sometimes they're starting to move around, but to Broussard or whatever. But we are really blessed in this city with what we have. And in here also is Gerald's direct, he just talks about doing more with less. And from Mickey Domingue and from Ernest Neighbors and from Gerald Boudreaux, they have done so much more in this city with so little money. They really have. And I know we're talking about a millage and an old millage, and it just won't cut it. A millage will not fund all these parks and these jobs and everything else that goes in it. I think there's a lot of creative things that you're talking about, and I'm into new things and creation, even though I'm an old lady. I grew up in this city. I swam in every pool, you know, O.J. Mouton. I played tennis. I played in Beaver Park when it was built with a lot of people, so I know Lafayette. I'm old Lafayette, and Lafayette is a wonderful place to live, and I want to see people stay here and people move here. What a wonderful thing it was when we got that job, that school mint. Wasn't that awesome? And one of the things they looked for was culture and quality of life. And we have to, but if they look at our newspaper the last few weeks, it's an embarrassment what has been going on. It really has. I just love this town too much to see it being torn apart. All our people are wonderful on every side of town. And we're Lafayette. We're not north, south, east, and west. We're Lafayette. I'm kind of going off of my script, but when I saw a 52% cut in our budget, I said this the other night, almost cried, because we can't live like that. And I'm so proud to see Mr. Lazard and some of you talk about putting a lot of money back in. Because if we cut it so bad, we're going to lose so many good programs that we may never be able to bring them back, or it might take a lot of time to bring it back. And I just don't want to see that happen. Another thing is, I think Lafayette needs to step it up. I think our millage was rolled back. We need to roll it back up. I think it's at 178 now. It was supposed to be 192. So I don't know how that's worked. Y'all know how to do all that, but that needs to be rolled back up. Mm-hmm. I do think sales tax, property tax is how it's funded, or how you want to fund us is just property. The city needs to bring in some sales tax. I don't know how, but we need to bring in some sales tax. I looked at some of the things that were published in Youngsville. They have a sales tax of 1 cent that they raised, and an individual pays $206 for this a year. Broussard, they have beautiful facilities. If you haven't gone to Youngsville or Broussard, you need to take a ride. They've got it right. They are investing in their children and their community and the quality of life. Broussard has a ½ cent sales tax, and that costs them $110 per family a person. Karen Crow pays a 3rd cent sales tax. That's $99. Lafayette, with our 1.78 millage, a big $22. Our parish, $11. Incorporated, of course, nothing. And the East Baton Rouge Parish, 14.65 mills, they pay $147. So you can see these people that when they invest in their city and their children, they're going to have great places and something they can be proud of. The other thing I wanted to talk about were these contracts for tennis, swimming, GOMO. I'm not against it, especially if it brings tennis back up, our tennis, and my, oh, shucks.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Sidra, can we make sure that we update the information on the website? We mentioned 2017.
Yes, it's 2017.
Can we make sure that's updated? Thank you. Next speaker. Yes.
Maria Collins.
Oh, let me.
There's a misprint in the budget book. The millage is 1.92. The misprint was that the title reflected the rolled-down millage, but that was rolled forward, and it is 1.92. The dollar amount is correct. It's just the title that is wrong. I apologize for that. We'll fix it in the final version.
It's not going to win awards like that, Lori.
No, it's not going to win awards like that.
And we have Maria Collins, followed by Mitzi Duhon.
My bad writing, it's Marilyn.
My apologies, it's Marilyn.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Marilyn, whenever you're ready.
Yes, I've been sitting and listening, and this is my first time. And I also been observing the council.
Ms. Marilyn, if you could get by the mic.
Okay.
Thank you. It's okay.
I've been sitting and listening, and it's just my first time attending. And really, the reason why I did attend was when I saw and heard about the foreclosing of the Rex. That really got to me. Even though I don't have children that attend, I did have some, but they are grown. But my problem was with, just like others, a lot of questions was answered, but will it be done? And another thing was, I couldn't understand how all of a sudden these four was going to be shut down, and then all of a sudden they're going to be left open. My concern is also, what about next year following budget? What about, how was it that in 19 to 20 budget, this was allowed? We all do budgets if we have a household. We all know that everything's going to have, some things are going to happen. The COVID virus. So how was it made a choice that these four be closed and the budget was already projected? And that's what I could not understand. And like already now, no, they're not going to be closed because, but the 37, like I said, it's employees, but that's families. And where we're going through now, we really need to observe what is the priority. These kids and these parks are a necessity. 1 year, that's not going to do it. You need to project for further. I agree that what's going to happen next. And I still do not understand how all of a sudden money was going to be taken. Oh, but now it's all good. But how long? So we really need to, everybody need to take, really, we are Lafayette. We're not north side, south side, but that is the way it have been for the longest. And that's the way it shouldn't be, because there's kids on every side of the town. And we must look at what we are, as leaders, councilmen, really put in that work, and it'll make a better Lafayette. And this won't be coming up, taken out, and we just need to focus on the right thing. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mitzi Duhon. Is she here? Followed by Michael Toussaint.
I wasn't sure if I was going to talk today, but I wanted to come for more than just talking. I wanted to come to show you what North Side Lafayette looks like. It really isn't just black. It's not Upper Lafayette either. Just so you know, the people that started that, most of them weren't from North Lafayette. There was a stigma. And it's funny because I'm an observer and I like to listen. And when I listened to, I'm sorry he's not here, but when Buddy Webb started speaking, I really and truly wanted to say everything he said in terms of the history. And I really don't think everybody knows the history. I think the vision is very short for a lot of people, mainly because a lot of people weren't from here, from Lafayette, period, let alone from North Lafayette. So you don't have the history. When you aren't in need of something, you can't appreciate the person that needs something because you already have it. So when I saw the 4 parks being closed down, I was like, so many other people, it was like, what? And for me, and I see now, I'm not the only one, it was pretty obvious. It was very obvious. And then when the word came out that not a lot of people knew about what was going on, I asked the question, then who did? So, like the previous lady before me just said, there was no money, now there is money. I don't like not trusting people. I really don't. I'm a certified, diehard, long-time registered independent. I don't give what your political affiliation is. I really don't. Somebody said they love Lafayette. You know, a lot of people we love, we're all one. Let's get real. We're not. And
bring it back to the budget. Bring it back.
Okay.
Bring it back.
But it does go with the budget, and thank you for that. It goes with the budget because it showed where money was not going to be spent.
Perfect. Thank you.
And that's undeniable. But the biggest thing is it's unfortunate. And the reason why I say it's unfortunate is because people's true colors are really showing. And this is not new, but there's such a cataclysmic event in this world, including down to here, at this podium, in this facility, that we need to catch the wave and go with the change. And the point that those 4 centers, including my neighborhood, other people's neighborhoods, those children and those elderly that don't have transportation, don't have a financial capacity to buy a membership somewhere else. And for those people that do have transportation and are members at other places, that's their identity. Some people are legacy members at Reds forever. Their grandmother went, their parents went, they're going, now they're taking their children. They paid for that. The money we give in our taxes, as little as it is, we all want to look like Texas facilities. Nobody here wants to pay for it, and that's on us. But the fact is, I reiterate, the trust factor is on high alert. It really is. So I wanted to, I may not have time to finish, but there's a story about I'll cut it short. There's a story about a guy who was walking on the beach, and he saw a little kid, didn't know what was going on, and he walked up, and the little kid was throwing starfish in the ocean. And he's like, you're not going to make a difference with those starfish. He said, there's too many. Look down the beach and see how many more you have. And the little boy picked up his starfish and he said to this one, it makes a difference.
Perfect timing. Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm told Michael Toussaint is no longer here. Next speaker is Missy Andrade, followed by Sarah Brabant.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Missy Andrade. I am in Mr. Gilbo's district and Liz's district. And I'm here today as the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Acadiana. And I do want to say it's amazing to hear people's passion for kids. We serve a very important mission at Boys and Girls Club, and it's one that we can't serve alone. We are not the only youth development organization in town, and we partner with a lot of people to do really great work. We actually are celebrating 50 years of service in Lafayette this year. We started off as the Boys Club at the Domingue Center back in 1970. And for those of you who don't know specifically, we serve as an after-school and a summer program. And in 2019, we served about 5,000 kids, and that included 2,500 from Lafayette. What I'm here to tell you today is that we are actually actively working through a public-private partnership in Lake Charles. With their city and their Parks and Rec department, where Cheniere Energy has provided private funding, the city has provided an underutilized rec center, and we are bringing in researched and really impactful programming into a community that needs it. So I'm not here to twist your arm. I'm more or less here to tell you that we're involved in something that is innovative and creative, and our board is considering if we will submit for the RFP. If we do or if we don't, we are committed to kids, and we are committed to ensuring that not just Boys and Girls Club, but the rec centers as well remain viable and impactful. So just here to share that with you guys today. I've provided information to many of you. And if you have additional questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And I
you.
know that you've had meetings with the administration as well.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks to you guys and to all of you. And if you do have additional questions, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to share more about that partnership. We're really excited about it and think that it is the right model. And if it's something right for Lafayette, we want to discuss that too. Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Sarah Brabant.
I'm Sarah Brabant. I am a UL Professor Emeritus of Sociology. I'm 87 years old, and I'm also the last living founder of the Commission on the Needs of Women. So that's who I am. I came today to honor 4 African-American women. Miss Jessie Taylor, Miss Isabel Gant, Miss Ethel Martin, and Miss Dolores Minor. I worked with them through UL with the internship program at those centers, and they started many of the programs that are still in existence. I just have to say to you, Josh, I hope I can call you by your first name, that I'm going to sleep a lot better tonight. I haven't slept well, and so I will. And I hope that y'all will look at some other areas, that you will relook at the museum, you relook at the nature program. I'll just leave you with this. No community is any better than the resources it provides to its children, to its young people, and to its elderly. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
T. Roloff, followed by Marja Broussard. T. Roloff. Okay, Marja Broussard. And she will be followed by Kate Durio.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Marja Broussard, the president of the NAACP here in Lafayette, also the state
You'll
vice
need to remove your mask so people can, we can hear
president
you.
for,
Thank you.
back a minute, for for District D, excuse me. Some people may not know, but the NAACP is the oldest, boldest civil rights organization in the world, celebrating 111 years today. This year. What a lot of people may not know, what the budget may not have shown, is that GOMO initiative was designed to have contractors cut grass for the city and parish properties, replacing black grass cutters and maintenance workers who make a living on the city, who takes pride in keeping our parks very beautiful. I would like a copy of the contracts. The community feel that the contractors are not taking the same pride the way the employees have. Additionally, there's actually no black contractors. The city government is recommending to lay off black workers and entry-level workers and hiring white contractors. There's a $300,000 allocation for these contractors to cut grass. Can anyone give the public the scope of this project, the cost-benefit analysis? And I would like a copy of this and all contracts implemented by Mayor Josh Guillory since January 1, 2020. Can that be arranged?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just making a note of that.
Acadiana Campgrounds. That is actually a jewel in our community and in our state. It has only one employee. It's a campground that is used by all ethnicities, white, black, south, north, people traveling, and it's in our neighborhood on Alexander Street. It's being proposed to be closed. It has very little economic impact to the budget, but it has a big impact on our community, and if it's left there dormant, this area will become blighted. We need an amendment to make sure that that campground stays open. What this budget analysis didn't say, that the 26 of the 37 employees recommended for layoffs are black. The proposal to switch down and make some of them part-time with no health benefits in the middle of a pandemic is really cold-hearted and evil, and it goes against fellow citizens who have given dedicated services to our community. Another question that maybe someone could answer me. How many mayor's office personnel have been reduced to part-time with no benefits?
Keep it to this part, because that's coming up next. You
It's
can,
part of the budget. It's part of the budget.
Parks budget.
Additionally, will my council offer an amendment to delete the cuts, to delete cuts, the chief of staff position, a new position, and fund the recreation positions? Parks and Recreation, I'm sorry, police, park police. Park police for the city of Lafayette is $380,000 a year. They take care of 35 parks, 10 recreation centers, golf course, pools, 1,800 acres of security for $380,000 a year. Before park police was in place, there were many parks that had drugs, murder, rapes, and the list goes on. What's going to happen? Is it going to be regulated? It's going to be regulated to those things again. If $380,000 is not restored for park policing in our neighborhood, we will suffer. We want our parks to be secured. With all due respect, we appreciate and commend the work of Lafayette Police Department in doing their work, but that's going to be added burden to them. And who's going to determine should they go on a call for a suspicious automobile in the park and whatnot? I personally feel that all of this closing that they said they didn't say, that we don't know what we're talking about. This is an attack on the north side, and Mayor Guillory really should be ashamed of himself. We demand amendments to leave the recreation centers whole, all employees, all buildings, and all services. Park and Recreation does not need an interim director, it needs a director. The Lafayette NAACP has gathered 50 organizations, not only to support the parks, not only to support park police, not only to support the 37 employees, but we support the community development, senior centers, opening of the arts in the campground. Let it be known, Lafayette is a kind community. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next.
Kate Durio, followed by Devon Norman.
Hello, Kate Durio. I'm in Councilman Lazard's district and Councilman Rubin's district. As you know, I'll start this by saying that I'm in a unique position to be here. I worked for the previous mayor for 3 years and ran the CREATE program, which included a little over $500,000 annual budget dedicated to culture and recreation. And I first got frustrated by the sort of seemingly rash action by the administration in cutting our cultural assets back in May, and then these 4 rec centers just a month ago. And I felt like I could be more proactive and do more in educating the council members and trying to empower you as our constituency that voted to put you here and try to give you the information at hand to make more informed decisions about equity and what we can do better. In saying that, I just really want to applaud all of you for your efforts in trying to protect our city budget and keeping our city tax dollars based on where they should be based. And I just want to, again, reiterate that I come from a position that I feel the council's control through this budget to right the ship and make amends to this broken trust that we have seen in our community. I trust City Councilman Lazard's amendment, and I support it, and I'm a proud District 5 resident and Parish Council District 5 as well for the last 7 years. I'm a homeowner. I pay sales taxes, I pay city taxes, I pay parish taxes. I'm also in the downtown development district, so I even pay higher taxes because of that. And so, you know, I feel like what we pay for culture and recreation, I would be willing to pay a lot more than that to keep these assets going. I want to thank the efforts of the council members who are already putting forth actions that are to clarify what is a very murky legal mess in this budget and not a fully deconsolidated city and parish. And I know that we're all sort of wading through that. But I also believe that this clarity will empower our councils to uphold the checks and balances that, quite frankly, I feel that our administration has behaved as though do not exist. I really realize that may feel like a shocking statement, but I base this on the fact that these feel like rash decisions that have not been paired with data to back up when these decisions were made. I feel, though, as a friend said it, we got a butcher when we really needed a surgeon as it came to our budget. This is about accountability and transparency, and I was at the meeting last week when I saw no public discussion about these rec centers, and I was very disheartened and went home and cried about that a lot. And Mr. Carlson and Mr. Gilbo, that I'm directly looking at you about that, as you sat there silently. I'm uniquely positioned here, as I said. I'm willing to have help. I have no job interest within LCG or trying to get my job back. I want to be very clear about that. I am successfully employed. I work for a company out of town. I'm lucky enough to be working remotely, and I choose to stay here and I choose to live here. I really am coming to this, again, my ask is that you support Councilman Lazard's amendment. We restore these positions, and I feel like it's our responsibility to do this for our kids and grandkids. We were left with these assets, we were left with all this public investment, and we are leaving our kids with less than even we had just a year ago. And I really take issue with that. We can't just put out fires. We need to be looking at our long-term vision, and we need to be appropriate with how we do that. I understand that just like you and your personal finances, you save a little and you spend what you need to. We're not doing that. We're just going after roads and bridges and not investing anything into the future or anything that builds any kind of wealth. There is money, there's not a priority, and I'm here to support a priority placed on our culture and recreation assets. There's CREATE money, there's money in the parish, the rededicated millage for the parks, the $2 million, and I just want to support that and make sure that we're exercising those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Devon Norman, followed by Pat Colbert-Cormier.
Hello, everybody, council, mayor, president. First, I just want to say that I think that when we get a little off topic sometimes and we talk in our passion, I think it's a way of peaceful protest. You know, we don't want to shut down the council meeting or anything like that. We just want to express our feelings and express what we're going through, because this is a tragic time in a lot of our lives. Talking about the budget and talking about having a budget, a lot of our families have had to, in the last recent months, budget unexpected funerals, unexpected hospital bills, and so much more. So we believe that the creativity when it comes to how we budget, which is a word that has been used very frequently lately, we believe that there are other areas that the administration and now the council, since it is in your hands, can be creative. We also believe that a creative way to handle the budget for parks and recreations may be to increase what is going on in our parks and recreations. That may be how we can lower our need to spend more money in crime reduction, how we can lower our need to spend more money in other areas, because again, we can be proactive instead of reactive. Talking about recreation centers and why it is so important and why it has been such a passionate issue for so many of us is because it seemed as if it was the last thing we had left to be proud of in this community, or one of the last things. Most of our success in our community comes from these recreation centers. Most of the success stories from rags to riches or from struggle to triumph come from these recreation centers. And so what we are saying is that if you want to live in a society that is more productive, that is more inclusive, that is more progressive, then we need to be better at handling our people. We need to find a better way to communicate to our people. We need to find a better way to connect with one another. We need to find common ground in the issues that bring us together, so when we have conversations about the budget, they can be more inclusive. So the conversations can involve leaders from the community, so we're not blindsided and we don't lose trust in our government. The biggest thing right now across this country is that the people do not trust the government. So when, it has been said so many times, you automatically or you suddenly say that, here we go, we found something. It seems like, well, couldn't that have been done maybe by the administration? Maybe our administration could have just been a little bit more proactive in finding a way to produce or introduce the budget to the council without almost maybe giving some of our people heart attacks and pushing them out in the streets. And you know, I would say that you only encouraged us, Mr. Mayor President, to get more active in our government, to get more active in the betterment of our people, and to be more inclusive, because I really am not one that is that good with math, and I don't sometimes, you know, it takes me a little while to get it. So, but I've been very intrigued with numbers lately. So I thank you for that. But make no mistake that this is not the end, that this sudden finding of money will not stop us from being here. We understand now more than ever that this is a detrimental time in Lafayette. And so the people of Lafayette will show up every single time. Everybody that spoke rose in support of the amendment and rose in support of the way that we see, or that we're being told that we're moving right now in our government. And so we could only hope and pray that, again, this would be something that would continue on, that the council understands wholeheartedly that we are in a situation now where the government is disconnected from the people. And so hopefully we can bridge that gap, we can bridge that disconnect, and we'll see where we'll be in 3 more years. Because each and every one of you will have to answer for this moment. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Pat Colbert Cormier.
Good afternoon.
Good
My
afternoon.
name is Pat Colbert Cormier. I'm a retired school teacher. I taught for 52 years, 34 of those at Lafayette High School. I may have taught some of your children. I was born and lived on the north side of town in a little place called Truman Addition. And we had very few, if any, recreation centers or parks on that side of town when I was growing up. And the first one we ever had was the Hyman Recreation Center. And looking at what is being done, I was very upset when I heard that they were closing 4 of the recreation centers on the north side of town. And my question was, why not 2 on the north side, if that had to be done, and 2 on the south side? Why is it always the north side of town? Integration came, we closed the schools on the north side of town, and our kids have to travel across town to Lafayette High, Lafayette Middle, Myrtle Place, etc. So why do we always have to pay the price for things to be, quote, better? Better for whom? Not us. Now, if you take away, I've taught a lot of kids from the north side of town. I've taught a lot of kids from the south side of town. And I've had students become doctors and teachers from both sides of town. But these kids had a place to go in the afternoon. We have tutoring at those places on the north side of town. We have dance classes for the elderly people on the north side of town. We have sports that the kids, and these centers are within walking distance of these kids' homes. A lot of times their parents are at work. A lot of times these parents are holding down 2 jobs to make ends meet. The kids have a place to go. They have friends to be with. They are supervised. If we close these centers, and I understand you have changed it, but if we would close these centers, we are creating another pipeline to prison. We have enough of that. It costs more to keep a person in prison than it does to educate a child. Is that what we want? I don't think so. And we are paying, like everybody else, we are paying taxes. I no longer live on the north side. I live on the south side. But I have property on the north side of town. I have relatives on the north side of town. So I pay taxes for the north side of town and the south side of town. And these children, our children, are just as important to us as your children are to you. I brought the 4 children by myself. One you may know, he's a neurosurgeon here in Lafayette, Louisiana, Dr. Cormier. I have one who was in the 9/11, on September 11, 2001, in New York. He was an investment banker. He now lives in Miami Beach. And I have a daughter who is a cancer survivor. She got her doctorate while she's going through chemotherapy. She has Dr. Zenon's education. And my youngest son got killed, and some of you may remember that, 24 years ago on Kali Saloon Road. But we did it. We did it because I demanded things from them. And these other parents demand things from their children. But if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the support, if you don't have the community behind you, it's hard for them to do it. So I'm asking you, we pay taxes. Don't take these recreation centers from our kids. I know a lot of stuff is systemic racism, and we're dealing with that from the top down. But we have to educate our kids, because it costs more, as I said earlier. It costs more to keep them in jail or in prison than have them to be constructive, productive citizens. Keep that in mind when you go over your budget again, and please, whatever you do, leave those 4 recreation centers open, because we do tutoring and dance and everything else over there. Thank you very much, Mayor President and Council.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Will Teely, and Mr. Teely, you may begin speaking.
Hello, my name is Will Teely. I live in City District 2 and Parish District 5. So that means Councilman Andy Nakan and A.B. Rubin are my city and parish council members. So thank you to them and thank you to the whole council. I don't have a speech prepared because honestly this budget has changed so much. Even if I wrote a speech last night, I don't think it would be applicable anymore. So I'm just going to kind of speak from the heart with what I've been seeing at the meeting. And what that is I don't buy into the narrative that's being put forward by the administration. I don't understand on page 197 of the Parks and Rec of the budget, which gives the recap for the Parks and Rec department, how they can have a 52% reduction in their budget, but all of these rec centers are going to stay open, they're going to be fully staffed, hours won't be cut, services won't be cut. I don't buy this argument. I think you have to be gullible to buy this argument. And to just simply state that we've discovered creative solutions and we can make it work isn't satisfactory to me as an argument. I support Councilman Glenn Lazard's amendment to restore the funding to last year. I think that makes the most sense. And clearly, this is our top priority, is it not? Like, how many meetings, how many council meetings and town halls and media articles and public discussion do we have to have on our Parks and Rec department? The people have never been more clear in the city and parish of Lafayette than they have now, that this is their top priority. This is the most important thing to them. This is the thing they care the most about. And I use the Mayor President's own words, that these tax dollars aren't his. This isn't his money. He is a fiduciary, and he is blessed to be the fiduciary. But this isn't his money. It's ours. And I don't know how many times we have to scream at him that we don't like what he's doing. So I implore the council to support Mr. Lazard's amendment, restore the funding to these departments. I'm okay with it coming from the general fund. If we've been supporting the Parks and Rec department from our general fund for 19 years, and we still have a stellar credit rating where we can issue new bonds, then I think we'll be okay. I think we can do it another year. I think we're going to keep that great credit rating. And what I'm seeing here is similar to what happened in a year past, where the prior administration tried to, without any public comment, without talking to anybody, try to privatize LUS. I see this as an attempt to try to privatize the park system. Even with everyone in the community screaming that this is not what they want, the administration still wants to move forward with it. We don't want to privatize our park system. We don't want to issue RFPs for private organizations to run them. We want our LCG employees with their LCG salaries manning these Parks and Rec department, and we want you to use our tax dollars to do it. That's the end of the discussion here. So I'm looking at the Parks and Rec department budget. It starts on page 197 and goes on, and there's so many line items that are made zero, that are zeroed out to nothing, that one of two things is going to happen this coming up year. Either the administration is going to have to come to the council meeting after meeting after meeting to ask for more funding because they don't have any funding to meet these accounts, or, and what I think is more probable, they're going to try to privatize the parks. And that's not what I want. I don't think that's what anybody else wants that I've heard speak on this issue. So I think that covers all of my points. I encourage you to support Mr. Glenn Lazard's amendment, and I appreciate you letting me speak on that. And then for the last thing I would say about the golf courses is that it's great the city of Lafayette won't subsidize them anymore, but I don't understand how these golf courses are going to have some flash sales and get the revenue numbers they're trying to get. I think that's ridiculous, and I think their revenue numbers need to be adjusted down to be more realistic, and with that, adjust their expenses down so they aren't subsidized from the city. But to have like almost $1 million in more revenue since this last year, I don't see it happening. I don't think it's realistic.
Thank you.
But yeah,
Next
thank
speaker.
you for letting me speak, and I hope the council will do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sidra, while we're waiting to call the next caller, could we put out a press release explaining that the parks are open? Because there seems to be a little bit of confusion, so maybe we put out a press release that says they are open, how they're open, times they're open, that sort of thing. Oh, I had
So
it highlighted.
you said the parks, but I
And
assume
I'm
you
sorry,
mean
but
the recreation centers.
You're absolutely correct. Thank you for correcting me, because I want to make sure our message is consistent, that the recreation centers are open.
Sure.
Thank you.
Next speaker is John Newman. Mr. Newman, you may begin speaking.
Thank you. I'm John Newman. I am the CEO for New Hope. New Hope is a non-profit that operates at the J. Carlton James Center. And I just wanted to express my support for the Councilman Lazard's amendment to restore all funding for the parks. We have money for our priorities. Whatever our income is, we figure out ways to fund our priorities. And I would encourage the council to fund our parks and rec system. I would encourage the councilman to think of our parks, our rec centers on the north side, as not being city rec centers, but being neighborhood rec centers that are resources and actually sanctuaries for in those neighborhoods. Let me just give a real brief history of the J. Carlton James Center to explain this. About 30 years ago, Miss Ruby Willits and Miss Eva Bro lobbied the city for an activity center in the Azalea Park neighborhood. That's the neighborhood that the J. Carlton James Center is at. It took them many years to finally get approval, but Miss Ruby Willits was operating a tutoring program at the Martin Luther King Center. But she wanted an activity center so she could have a tutoring program in the Azalea Park neighborhood. After many years of lobbying, they finally got their center, and Miss Ruby did her tutoring program in the J. Carlton James Center. Now, that might only be 2 or 3 miles away from the Martin Luther King Center, but for many of the families who are growing up in poverty or living in these neighborhoods, it might as well be 100 miles away. Because when you are economically disadvantaged, transportation is a huge issue. So these are not city rec centers, these are neighborhood rec centers. And if we take these resources away, we're denying access to these children that won't have another opportunity for another rec center. I guess I want to tell you what some of the things that are happening at our